How's that?
We're good. All right. So, as we said, Mike Jones can only do 10 years. All right. We're going to try and do like 38 or 40 years. So what we'll do is we'll throw some names out position by position.
Yeah, we can cover it.
All right. Let's start point guard. What do you got?
Well, I think you have. I can't do that.
An unbiased opinion?
An unbiased opinion. We got Pete Strickland, and then there's the others. So we can talk about the others. That's fine. So Tony Ellis and Mike Bray, if we're going from 72, kind of when I started. Well, let's go from 72. So the point guard in 72 was Buzzy O'Connell on one of Morgan's best teams. Buzzy was a fantastic complement to the great players that Morgan had on that team. Adrian Dantley, Carol Holmes, Billy Langlow. And so he was fantastic. Billy Mecca followed him. I followed Billy Mecca. And then we get to the real players. Then we get to Tony Ellis. Mike Bray was a point guard here. Of course, the current coach of the Irish. Mike was a point guard.
And a big supporter of the school, so we throw that in there.
He's got to be in there. He's a contributor. And then Dutch Morley, I would say, would be the next really quality point guard during that next segment of the 70s. Was starting point guard for 3 years. In fact, his senior year, Sidney Lowe, who would be another guy who would be in the conversation to be one of the best, played behind us. So Sidney Lowe didn't start till he was a senior. And yet those are two of the best point guards DeMatha has ever had.
All right, so I'm going to go a little later because I came in '85.
There you go.
And I'm not going to talk as long as you. But one would be Dwayne Simpkins.
Loyalty. Loyalty. How about that? Just a shrug of the shoulders, a look askance.
4-year varsity player. And back in that
wait,
in the day,
who's that? Who's that?
Dwayne Simpkins.
Oh,
you heard of him?
Oh,
right.
yeah. Oh, boy.
So 4-year varsity player, which was rare back then. He was only like the 5th DeMatha player to be in the varsity as a freshman. His 3 starting years, sophomore, junior, senior year, we won the league. Can't do better than that. And another guy, Nigel Munson. He won 2 out of 3 starter. He was on the varsity 4 years old. And both those guys had the ability to make the right play, get others involved, make people better players. But if they had to score, they could. But it was like the second option. Run the team first. And what do we need? If we need me to shoot, we can score.
Well, you did talk longer than me. So there you go. Next guy I would mention would be Tracy Bergen, who is known. He started as a sophomore as well. And Tracy's really well known for his senior year, his sophomore year, when we were playing in Alhambra, and you remember the staff, as was I, we were in the championship game. And Mike Bray and I went, you didn't want to play. We went up to get a workout in midday at the Cumberland Y. And Tracy Bergen was playing in the midday lunch game at Cumberland Y.
How was he doing?
Well, he was subbed for immediately. But that's what he's known for. Now, Tracy, a great player as well. Went to Loyola, went to the NCAA. Let's look at our wings. Derek Wittenberg would lead the discussion.
All right.
He would lead the discussion. Adrian Branch, one of the best players really to wear a Stag uniform, went on to a great career at Maryland. Who you got?
Well, when I first came here, John Gwynn was a wing player. I saw him get 45 against Gonzaga in a home game in the old gym. He was the microwave. He was Vinnie Johnson. Great career up at UConn. A lot of fun to watch. Great kid. Kenny Blakeney. He was great first graduate night. Now he's a head coach over at Howard University. Keith Bogans. And then I didn't actually coach Victor Oladipo, but he was a freshman my last year coaching. Matter of fact, Victor Oladipo, Jerry and Grant, they were both on the freshman team together.
Well, they're there. They've got to be in the discussion. And then you've got Keith Bogans. Did we mention him?
Yep.
Vaughn Jones, who's been a.
Well, Vaughn's one of those guys we could put in. He was a point forward. We could put him in any category. He was a great passer. He could finish. He could set people up. A little bit of everything. When he was on the varsity, every play we ran involved, let's go the ball to Vaughn in the middle of the floor. No matter what the set was, get it to Vaughn in the middle of the floor.
And he was also a linchpin on one of Morgan's best teams as well, an undefeated team.
Right.
That in 80.
Well, 91, you were close. They're up
80,
on the wall.
And then you had 10. I always like to start, and then you had 10.
But Vaughn was on the same team with Mike Jones.
That's right.
And Joe Wooten, Ted Ellis, great team.
So a lot of other teams tried to keep up with the Joneses. See how I kept my straight face on that one? All right, let's look at some post guys. There was a guy that was pretty good after the death of Jesus Christ, Adrian Dantley, and arguably the best player in the history of DeMatha. Morgan would never say who was the best.
Well, actually, now he does say, I guess we have to go with the guy who's in the Naismith Hall of Fame. And we'll miss Pete. I'll just take over for now. So, but yeah, AD, Again, on the varsity for 4 years, back when it almost never happened.
He didn't mention me?
Well, not as a forward.
Oh, well, that's okay then, Morgan. That's okay. Adrian Danley, absolutely. He was so fun to watch, Neal. I don't think I ever saw him dunk, ever. And I was a sophomore when he was a senior. Was on the varsity until the season started because I had transferred in. And you couldn't play varsity if you transferred. And watched him play that whole year, watched him play his 4 years of college, competed against him. Never saw him dunk. Never saw him dunk. I think he's the sixth leading scorer in the NBA now.
Well, if you think about that in his career, which I think lasted 16 years, he was about my size, not much taller, certainly a little bit stronger, but he wasn't a great jump shooter. You wouldn't say he was unbelievably quick. You know, you go down the list of things he couldn't do, except he'd beat you.
Kind of had the physical attributes completely like you have. What happened?
bad coach. I didn't know Morgan to coach me in high school. Well, there you go.
And then we got Hawkeye. Hey, how about this, Neal? I was lucky enough to play. Well, again, I couldn't play varsity my sophomore year, but lucky enough to play with Kenny Carr, who's one of the best forwards ever. Had a great career at NC State. Played 12 years in the NBA. Him and Adrian were two players on the Olympic team. The only two high school players to ever be on the same Olympic team in '76 in Montreal. And another guy I played with was Hawkeye Whitney. Arguably three of the best forwards to ever come through here.
What are you going to do?
Neal was speechless. That's a first. How about that one? I didn't know it was that good what I said, but obviously it was. All right, Neal, how about you?
Well, we got to mention one guy, maybe not for scoring, but our guy, Bill Ruback. Now, a lot of people wouldn't have him on the list, but he's our friend, and this is our halftime show, so we can do whatever we want.
Got to be two for Rube.
Got to be two for Rube. But some guys.
A couple other good players that lag behind Bill Ruback would be Danny Ferry, National Player of the Year, and Bill just got shafted in the voting. But Danny Ferry, he was the USA Today National Player of the Year, had a pretty good career at a school called Duke. And then we had Carol Holmes. I want to mention Carol Holmes because I want to mention Morgan's best teams in the 72-73 season. Carol Holmes was the glue to that team. He was a 6'3" power forward, which even in those days was way too small. He was actually 6'2". Had a great high school career. Was one of Morgan's, I think, favorite players. If Morgan ever, it was me, and then there was Carol.
Chairman of the boards, they call him. There were no fights when he was around. He took care of everything. One of those guys, after a while, just went unchallenged.
That's true.
Because he was always the toughest guy in the room.
Who else we got there? Mike Pegues, great player. And, Neal, you got a great piece on Mike, right?
Mike, one of my all-time favorites. Morgan doesn't have favorites, but I do. What a gentleman. He actually was very ill. 8th grade before he came to DeMatha, almost wasn't going to play. Right? But played in, had a great career. Gets recruited to Delaware, where our buddy Mike Bray, his first recruiting class, Mike's second year, brings Mike Pegues in. And if Mike Bray were here, he'd say, this is the guy that got me the Notre Dame job. Because Delaware goes to the NCAA, I think 3 times. Mike's Player of the Year 2 times. If the coaching thing doesn't work out for Mike, he can run for, he'd be the governor of Delaware.
And another, it's just getting bright in here because the Stags are playing so well. Another great player would be Carlton Valentine. He beat me here when I returned after playing. He beat me here in my coaching time here by 1 year, but he led the Stags to the national championship. Danny Ferry was a junior, and Carlton, they all say, was the bedrock upon which team that was built. His son, Denzel Washington, great career at Michigan State, now playing for the Bulls. But he's a DeMatha guy through and through. And 2 guys that we coached together, Coach Gerard Mustafa and Ted Jeffries, 2 really good ones.
2 guys at the same time. And it's hard to play 2 big guys together. Ted never really started in high school. But at UVA, he started for 4 straight years. Gerard went to Maryland, played 2 years, went to the NBA. Ted, very loyal DeMatha guy, always around, great supporter, had an awesome career there.
Did you hear how Neal did that when he was talking about Ted starting? 4 straight years. That's Morgan intonation. That's Morgan intonation. He picked it up.
Actually, I think Morgan picked it up from me. Well, we can argue that later.
There you go. Well, these sunglasses come courtesy of one of our sponsors, Finster Grints, and they're very nice. You can buy them in a lot of different colors. This is, I think, pink, but, what the heck? Things are changing. And I think that's who we got. Kevin Looney, I think, also one of the best forwards, and we didn't get to him, but there's going to be a whole bio on Kevin. Scored 6 points in one game his junior year. Kevin Looney. All right, back to action. The Stags up 45-24.